What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. This right here, as you all know, is the podcast where we dive in to the deep, dark, murky waters with a plethora of legendary guests. I am, of course, your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the numero uno scumbag, Rex Ruger. That's Rex with 3 X's, REXXX. And it's that way for a reason, which you don't need to know. You might also know me as the King of Sleaze, a.k.a. the Hair Metal High Priest, and most importantly, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. That's right, you're looking at the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked a few grams. I got 1 million fans. I'm your ice cream man, Mr. Wop Bop Baloo Bop Wop Bam Bam Shazam. Hot damn. Ooh, I'm feeling good. Most importantly, everybody in the house, including you all out there, looking good. You know how I accomplish that. Get it? Love it? Use it. Coming to you as always from the Lavender Lounge of Love, and joined as always by the great Keith Hernandez Puppet, number 17 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts, bringing you the No Frills podcast. No frills, but plenty of thrills. And that's looking at the face of the second greatest front man to ever do it, the hardest working man in show business. Put in a hard 8 hours in the healthcare field today and still here bringing you this kick-ass podcast. And please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel if you're watching me right now. And be sure to follow Pod Scum on Facebook. And today we have a good interview going against what we usually do because I don't have a rocker. I don't have a metal guy. I have an actor. That's right. Thespians will even come on and have conversations with Uncle Rex. So I'm very excited about today's. It's very nostalgic for me. It is somebody who starred in one of my favorite movies, a movie that I feel epitomizes the very essence of the 80s. And he's here now. So let's get down and chop it up with him on Pod Scum right now. I can't wait. Wow, JAMISON NEWLANDER, I'm so glad you're here, buddy. It's great to finally see you, man. You know what? When you pop up, man, I just go right into Alan Frog mode, man. You must get that all the time, right? I mean, you're synonymous with him.
Yes, the thing is that there are definitely people who don't know the movie. You know, there are some people out there that don't know the movie, but for the most part, when people find out that I'm Alan Frog, yeah, they get.
I don't trust those people. I don't trust those people that haven't seen the movie. I don't like them, and
they're out there.
I think if Trump's going to build a wall, those people should be put on the other side of it too. God damn it, that haven't seen the Lost Boys. I mean, come on. Jesus Christ. I mean, what rock could you have been living under, man? You know, I was just talking to one of my friends and we were talking about, I was talking with my childhood friend, Sean, about how we went to see it 2 nights in a row in 1987 when it came out. And we really wanted to be vampires.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, I get that a lot about Frog Brothers. I mean, people wanted to be brothers. I ran into at a convention the like 2 brothers, and that's what they did. They played Frog Brothers in the woods. You know, like it was just like the, you know, so.
Now, yeah. I'm curious, man, how early on did you become an actor?
You know, I wasn't as early on as like Feldman or, Haim, they all came in earlier. Feldman was like the earliest, right? He came in at like age 2 or whatever. I wasn't really in the business until I got my first gig at 14, actually. And so I sort of like at 13 grabbed all my, got all my pictures together and everything like that. And then at 14, I got a gig, and then I got another gig and a couple more gigs. And then at 15 is when I got Lost Boys, like toward the end of my, like just as I was about to turn 16. I was 16 when we shot it.
And was it solely your decision to get into acting? Like how did you do it? Because obviously, back in those days, like a lot of parents seem to push kids into it a lot, and I think that's why. And both of the Coreys have been pretty candid throughout their life about the pitfalls of getting into the industry very young.
Yeah, definitely. My path was different. Like I was just one of those kids who was like, I had no parents in the industry. I had no family, that I knew of who was in the industry. And so I just kept nagging my parents. I mean, not kept nagging my parents. In all fairness, I there was a stretch where I was, first of all, I was very dramatic and very like, at any family gathering, I was always looking to do a skit or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, my cousins too, you know, even the
Yeah.
ones that didn't become actors, but you know, we all did skits together, you know. And that's kind of where it started. And the thing is that where was I heading with this? What was the question?
About how early, how early you got into it and who pushed you into it.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. So it wasn't like my parents were like, you know, I've talked to Keith Coogan, you know, he is, you know, and definitely the Coreys about this, and, you know, about how they were responsible for paying rent, you know, that there was financial responsibility on them. It wasn't like that for me. I was like just a kid who loved doing it. And then I was in drama, and then it was like, oh, you know, my mom happened to know someone who had an agent, and then, you know, just kind of went from there, you know.
But when you're not being, but when people aren't thinking of you as Alan Frog, you have done other stuff though, right? Like, and I've got down here that in '96 you even wrote a play.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll give you the nutshell of it. So it's like, you know, not having a big history in the business, you know, when you know, like you were saying, you know, it was only a couple of years that I had been in the business, and I had no family or anything like that. So after Lost Boys, I didn't. Lost Boys, it didn't catapult me right away. I was hoping I was going to get meetings right away off of it, and it wasn't like that. It wasn't huge in the movie theaters. I mean, it had a big release, but it wasn't until it was on video that it was this really big thing, you know, where everybody began to know about it. And so by that point, you know, time all moved so fast, or maybe I was just sort of antsy, and I went off to college. I went off to study theater in New York. And so I was in New York and I studied theater, and then I did a bunch of plays. I was doing theater in New York and different regional theaters around the country for 10 years after that. And so my film career, it just kind of it didn't continue in the same way. It didn't, you know, cruise upward in the same way. I was still doing all kinds of stuff, you know, but it just wasn't high profile like that until the last maybe 10 years. I'm starting to do this kind of thing again, you know.
And you know, do you like that aspect of of the theater as opposed to movies?
Yeah, the theater. I love the theater. And when I was studying acting, when I was coming up, I was like, that was almost like that was like the promised land, you know, going to theater. And that's probably why I went. I mean, probably I've thought about it a lot. It's why I went to New York. I was thinking like, you know, if I could make it there, I could make it anywhere, kind of thing, you know.
Right.
And the thing is that it's so enticing. Live theater is so amazing to do, you know, when it's going well, and you're up there, and the audience, you're feeding off the audience, and they're, you know, and they're watching you and loving you, you know. It's a really amazing experience. Now the theater career, in that way, it doesn't exist in the same way as it did when I like maybe saw it, you know, in like films when I was a kid and stuff. So it didn't, you know, I love the theater. And as I had this talk with Jason Patrick the other day about this, actually, that we love the theater. We'd love to do the theater, do more theater, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of being in one place for not that much money, which is great. You know, which is like, okay, if you really believe in it, but you have to really believe in it at this point, unless it's easy to do and it's here in LA, you know. But
well, that makes me feel good though to hear that you say you talked to Jason Patrick, because I've seen you guys do like lots of these Lost Boys panels and stuff. It seems like there's a great camaraderie. Like, do you all keep in touch pretty often?
Yeah, you know, it wasn't always like that. We do now. It's really the conventions that's kind of brought that back, because like you know, after the movie, you know, it's like we're all teenagers and we're all doing different things, and their, you know, career paths were all kinds of different. And you know, where I was is, you know, I was into that, you know, into theater, and I was also really, as I look back on it, really competitive, you know, with them, more so than I needed to be. You know, I think the realization that I've come to as an adult is that remember that we're friends, you know, remember that we're all friends. We're not just in a business together, you know, and that should be foremost, you know, we spend time together, so let's be friends, you know. And so that's become more valuable to me, those friendships. And I think probably to all of us. So Jason and I reconnected in 2019. We were doing a convention in Manchester in England. And and we just started talking again. I mean, I kind of knew we would connect again because he was such a great guy, you know, back in shooting. But that was the first time I saw him since 87, you know.
And what was that casting call like when you go for that role? Because you did say, you know, I mean, that you were virtually at that time an unknown. It seems like for those roles, I mean, in getting to work with Joel Schumacher, it seems like a lot of people must have turned out for those roles.
Yeah, they saw everybody, and it's an honor looking back on it, but it's sort of nerve-wracking. You know, it was nerve-wracking at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, so much so that there was a while where I thought I didn't have the part. You know, because they didn't believe. I mean, I shouldn't say they didn't believe. I got really lucky that they did believe in me. It happened in a couple different ways. The casting director, Marion Doherty, I read for her a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another project. She really wanted me for this other project, but a couple things didn't work out. So I already had her. I had a lot of belief from her. And then Schumacher, he ended up. He spoke at my acting class. Actually, my acting teacher was an old friend of his, or was a friend of his, whatever. And that right there gave me a bit of a leg up. So that, and then I think as it turned out, I dressed really exactly right for what they were looking for. I didn't know that, I just kind of took the cues of what they said, but it turned out that I dressed exactly right. And I just think my tone against Feldman it worked out, but so they saw me, and then they saw me, and then they read me with Feldman, and then they went and saw everybody else in LA, in New York, all over the country, or, wherever they were casting at the time. And I didn't hear from them. I was like, I guess, like that's an eternity. I was maybe a month that I didn't hear from them. And
especially when you're young.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. A month is like forever. Yeah. And at that point I was used to hearing, if I got a call back within a few days, and if I didn't hear in a week, it was like, all right, that's it,
Yeah.
And so I just kind of got a little emotional thinking about that sort of that feeling, especially as a teenager, where you don't understand that feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, and especially not having that confidence, as you said, you had kind of just gotten into it. So I mean, you didn't have that. You didn't have that storied history that Feldman and even Corey Haim had at that point. I mean, they'd been working for a while.
Yeah, exactly. And a thought that sort of combined with that, and also with this other thing I was talking to Keith Coogan about. I did this because I was sort of trying to start a podcast myself that didn't work out, but I interviewed Keith, and it confirmed a bunch of different things. And one of the things was that he was talking about how at the time there were all these New York actors coming in who were competing against him for roles. He was a veteran, from childhood. He was working all the time, but then there came these theater actors from New York, which circled back to this theater thing, about like, that's kind of, I was sort of riding on that in a way. Like I wasn't from New York, but I was sort of acting like I was from New York in a way, as I look back on it. Like, in the movie, I was talking about this recently, where there's a couple times where I really kind of sound East Coast,
Very.
Right.
I'm in upstate New York, so I can confirm that. Yes, you did.
Yeah, nice. And that was like, I loved that. I mean, because it's like my favorite actors were like Pacino and De Niro and all those guys, everybody, from New York. And so, so it's like I was like, you think we just work in a comic book store for our folks, just trying to be all kind of like a little tougher, and or that's what being tough meant to me. It was being from New York, or whatever,
Yeah.
So I think that also played a part, that they were looking for a freshness, that they were looking for that kind of that theater actor, edginess,
Yeah.
So
you mentioned those other names, Pacino and De Niro. When you get bit by the acting bug, is there a performance or a movie or a scene in something that really put the bug in you to want to act?
Yeah. Let's see. Let me think about this, because there's a few key scenes like that. And by the way, as a reminder, if I get emotional thinking about it, I get emotional these days.
Me too. Listen, buddy, you don't even got to explain it. I'm 50 years old, man, and I cry at the drop of a hat now. I cry when my grandkids. I cry when my grandkids are here for the weekend, and they go home at the end of the weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm upset. Yeah. I know.
But it's lovely too, right? I mean.
Yeah, it is. Sure.
Really, it's like very full. So, I mean, definitely, I think that like Pacino in like and Justice for All, you know,
Sure.
where he's like, "You're out of order," you know, where you're just
Yeah.
waiting for him. You want, I mean, you know that movie? You know, it's like
Yeah. Oh, of
we're of the
course.
same generation-ish, you know, so it's
Yeah.
like, so yeah, it's like when I saw that in the movie theater, and it's like you're just wanting him to just stick it to him, and he's just like, "You're out of order," you know,
Yeah.
and just that how great he was at that, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, I think at the time I couldn't distinguish from performances versus the character, you know, versus the writing, you know. It was all just, if it was brilliant, I couldn't say like, oh, that was great acting necessarily. It just was like, wow, you know, even what they said was great, you know what I mean? Like it all kind of
Right.
worked together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
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 you know,
and oh no, go ahead. Finish your point first. Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, I mean, I was just going to name some others. I mean, even though this doesn't fall into that line, but you know, Jeff Daniels is one of my favorite actors. I just saw him again. I was watching the Gettysburg movie.
Yeah.
And you know, in terms of endearment, I forget when I saw that. And again, it doesn't fall into that New York thing, but it's like that realistic, that, you know, so realistic, so full, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Everybody was method back then. They really were. Yeah.
Right. That's what happened. It was
Yeah.
there was this wave of method, you know, that kind of
Yeah.
came through. And really, that's where I studied with a woman named Lynette Katsalis, who was the wife of, or ex-wife, I think by that point, of Milton Katsalis, who was like a pretty big method teacher. I mean, I don't know if he would have called himself method per se, you know, but that kind of thing, that the wave of that like super
Right.
deliberate, you know, kind of emotional acting. And
Right.
and it was really amazing. I mean, that wave was really amazing, you know,
But
to
once the
see
Lost
that in
Boys, but once the Lost Boys takes off, now you are still young though, and even though you weren't as young as the two Coreys were, you know, did you still feel that pressure of like the trappings of being young and being in Hollywood, and how did you avoid it?
Okay, so yes, I did. I felt that pressure, but I felt it in probably a much different way. So it's like I was a kind of, before this, I was a good kid. Like I was an honor student, you know, right before this, before this, you know, before this scourge. No, I mean it, like, you know, I mean in a good way. Like I was in high school and I was a good kid, and I was starting to kind of be good at this acting thing, but nobody really knew it. I was just doing it at auditions and stuff.
Right.
You know, and so when I got Lost Boys, and then when Lost Boys came out, all of a sudden I was dealing with a lot of different things. But one thing was people thinking I knew what I was doing, you know, knew that, you know, thought just because I was, you know what I mean, that I had some sort of key, or, you know, and so that was, you know, could be confusing, you know, to me. It was quite confusing at the time, but it also was really fun. People wanted to talk to me. They wanted me at their parties, you know, and stuff. So I was navigating that, and there's a piece of that that's related to Hollywood that I couldn't quite. It was all a little too intimidating, that party scene. You know, I remember that, like, Haim and Feldman, especially Haim, but there were some nights where I was hanging out with Haim and Feldman and some other people, and they were ready to go to this club, and I just wasn't. I just didn't. I wasn't. I didn't know what to do. I felt awkward, you know. So I just took off, you know.
Yeah.
So that's in a way how I avoided it. Was just kind of that I was a bit younger than them. I mean, you know, I was a little bit older, but I was a bit younger than them in terms of my party age.
Right. Yeah, because it seemed like they were certainly worldly, sometimes beyond their years, even. You know, like they had seen and been through a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And but even like a regular teenager, you know, what I consider to be a regular teenager. Now, granted, I went to Beverly High, so, you know, it's like there were parties, but I like a regular teenager still probably partied more than I did, you know, even though it's like, it's not that I didn't want to, it's that I just didn't even know how, you know, or it takes time to figure this out, you know, how to, and so what was that about? Was that an answer to? And
now, were you just happy to get the role, or did you kind of, I don't want to say overanalyze, but, you know, obviously Jason Patric was very public at first about kind of going against the grain and kind of pushing back and saying, I don't really know if I want to do a vampire movie. Seems a little cheesy. Did you have any reservations about that at all?
No, not a one. No, I at the time I was thrilled to have, you know, any job that I got, any job that I booked. You know, it's like I booked a couple commercials, I booked you know, a couple spots on some television shows, and I was thrilled every single one of those. And to have, when I got Lost Boys, I just couldn't believe it. You know, it was here we go, I'll get emotional, but it's a bit of a dream come true. You know, it's like kid goes to Hollywood, you know, and it's like, I'm not from Hollywood. I was born in LA. I was going to Beverly High, you know, actually I was at Beverly High. I was in the musical Peter Pan at the time. I was a Lost Boy, playing a Lost Boy in Peter Pan at the time I was auditioning for Lost Boys.
No kidding. Really?
Isn't that so trippy? Yeah.
Yeah.
I just put that together like the last couple of years. I was like, damn.
Yeah, because that's crazy because vampires don't grow up and get old.
Yeah, exactly.
Much like Peter Pan.
Yeah, that was the sort of connection that they were trying to very subtly, you know, put in there. So anyway, that tripped me out. But so it's like, you know, it's sort of like holy. I mean, can I swear? I mean, I don't have to swear.
Sure,
but
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Like holy shit, this worked. You know, like you imagine at 13, 14, just being like, yeah, I want to be an actor. I want to be Pacino. I want to be De Niro.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, hell, motherfucker, I got in a movie, you know.
Yeah, you're in a huge studio movie. Sure.
Yeah. So it was a really big deal. And I was also working with these guys who, you know, Haim, I'd just seen him in Lucas, you know, and I swear at the time, I don't think I'm rewriting this, but I think I really at the time was like, I'm going to work with that guy, you know, I really want to work with that guy.
Yeah.
And then it's like, there I was. It was like, I don't even know how long later that was. It might not even have been a year later. I know it was probably. I don't know, whatever. But I auditioned for Lucas, by the way. I auditioned for the role in Lucas.
And did you feel any pressure or put any undue pressure on yourself when you are working with the two Coreys because they had already had so much experience under their belt, and now here you're going to be kind of starring like you kind of gotta, you know, did you have any reservations? Geez, do I have the chops to keep up with these guys? These guys have been doing it a long time.
Great question. It's complex. The first thing I have to say is that I think that whatever kind of nervousness I had, I kind of manicked out a little bit. I like brazened out a little bit by being super cocky inside my head. Like,
yeah,
I was really cocky at the time. I was, you know, it's fun to think of because it's like, I don't know where it came from, but it was almost like I was acting, you know, like, but I was really cocky, and I really thought I really had something to offer. You know, I was like, I was in acting classes and I was doing stuff, and I was like, you know, like, I think I can do this, and I think I can bring these characters alive, and it's incredibly fun. And, you know, so to me, that's what I think that was one thing that like mitigated my feeling intimidated. The other thing is that Feldman and Haim, like specifically them, but also I'll include Jason Patrick and Joel Schumacher, you know, and you can include any of the other guys, but those guys specifically were so supportive. They were just.
Yeah, I get that from them. Yeah, I can tell. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, you know, even now, you know, when I was getting reacquainted, like, you know, when Jason and I got coming kind of back into being friends, I was like, I was saying like, look, it's going to be a little weird at first because like you were like an older brother to me, you know, at the time. It's going to, we're the same age now kind of. And so like, just so you know, there's going to be a period of time where I'm still going to kind of be worshiping you a little bit like like an older brother, you know?
Yeah. Well, speaking of great actors who, you know, obviously he had a tragic ending or whatever, but you also did a TV movie with River Phoenix, did you not?
I did. Yeah, I did. I had an amazing time with River Phoenix. You know, the more distance, even the more significant it is to me. One day is all I worked on that movie. And we were up against each other for this movie. It was called Circle of Violence, a family drama. It's about elder abuse. And with Tuesday Weld, right? And so who I didn't really know at the time, but you know, big actress, matinee queen, I guess, or you know. And so Tuesday Weld gets, you know, they offered Tuesday Weld, who's blonde, and so I can't play the kid. You know, it's got to go to the blonde, you know, so or the one who could conceivably become a blonde.
Right.
You know? And so River gets it, and they were like, but we want to give you the part of the friend, you know. And I don't know if you've seen the clip online. I'm really proud of it, actually. I feel like it's really kind of good work. And talk about being like this East Coast kid, like this, like, you know, like cocky East Coast kid. I'm glad that was captured, you know. And so we had a great time. River was like the sweetest kid, the most giving. They all are. All these guys, you know, these guys who are, you might, I mean, even the ones who you might think are, you know, from the reputation or whatever, and certainly you don't, you know, River, of course, was always thought to be, I think, a gentleman, and That was my experience, is that he was just so sweet, so giving. And at lunch we played football. You know, he was also thrilled to have like other kids on the set, I think, too, you know.
Now, I really loved what they did with a Tale of Two Coreys, but when I'm looking through my bullet points of stuff I want to talk to you about, I feel so foolish the amount of times that I've watched that I didn't know that you played a cop in it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's like it was this period where I'm kind of I'm trying to come back, you know. It's like, so I'm trying to get some roles, anything I can put on a reel, you know, to say like, this is what I'm doing now. And so they gave me that role. Originally, I think we were talking about me maybe even playing Bernie Haim, but it's a little too close. The Haims, I don't know if they were involved in that project, and so it was a little bit tricky me playing Bernie without really talking to Bernie about it, and you know what I mean. So that, among other reasons, I took a smaller part, you know, the cop, and so it was great. Actually, it's a great part for my. You can go on either my website or even just on my Google, on my YouTube account and see my reel. And so it's one of the clips on my reel, you know, that from that.
And where are you, you know, if you can tap back into that time period, and, you know, I would be guessing what year it actually was, but I know it's been quite some time. But where are you, and who delivers the news to you when we find out about the untimely passing of Corey Haim?
Yeah, so when did he die? January of 2010? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think somewhere around there. Yeah, 2010 sounds right. Yeah.
I think I would have gotten a call from Feldman pretty quickly, or from we were all with a manager back then, Scott Carlson, who Corey and I are both sort of with, but we were all sort of working with him. And I would have probably heard from both of them. I can't remember if it was that or seeing it on TV for the first, you know, for that first moment.
Yeah.
And it was really shocking, because he was on the way back, you know. I swear he was on the way back. And you know, just as like I'm feeling it, you know, there's a little momentum that starts to pick up, and it's happening a little bit with me. And I could see that even if it wasn't officially happening for him yet, people wanted to see him. They wanted him back, and he's a good actor, you know.
Yeah. And
so, you know,
as far as you know, you've done, you know, you did the original Lost Boys, but then you did the sequels. You know, when you take roles like that, do you worry about, geez, I'm doing too many of these vampire movies? You know, is this going to pigeonhole me into something, or do you find that space inside of you where you just embrace, like, you know, hey, if an Alan Frog has to appear in a movie, I'm going to be him.
Yeah, I think that this is good. The good question. So there's a lot of nuances to that. I mean, first of all, you know, they were talking about making sequels to this, you know, from the beginning. And so I just really did want to reprise it. You know, I felt like there was a lot of opportunity. I feel like there was more opportunity. I still think there's more opportunity out of this. And we're pitching something, me and Feldman, you know, trying to get some more out of this, you know, but it's
awesome.
So it's like when it happened, you know, to take a little quick detour, in college, I did a play that was directed by Giancarlo Esposito. You know, he is right. He's more famous now. He was a little famous back then. Yeah. And he was talking to us about how, at the time, he was most famous for Do the Right Thing, for his character in Do the Right Thing. Mm-hmm. And so they kept trying to, you know, hook him up with other roles like that. And he was like, no, I'm not gonna do another role like that. I don't want to get pigeonholed like that. And I was like, at the time I thought, that's cool and everything, but like, these are good roles, you know, like, you know, these are real roles, you know, why aren't you doing those? You know, is it really going to pigeonhole you? And I was thinking about him again recently, because he you know, he just got that big role. He just got a big role in some Marvel movie or something. I can't remember, but anyway, he's been in a lot of stuff, you know, a lot of great stuff that is definitely not part of that mold from back then, from his character from Do the Right Thing. So it's a good example of like, this guy played it right, and I can see that. Me, on the other hand, right now, I'm really just kind of hungry, and I want to do whatever I can, you know. So if I got another vampire role. Actually, to tell you the truth, right now, I'd love to get another horror franchise, just because I'm doing these conventions, and it's nice to be, celebrating Lost Boys, but it'd be nice to have a new one as well. I mean,
Well, they have a very rabid fan base, though. They do.
Yeah, Lost Boys, you mean, or you mean the
just horror movies in general, even.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
it's
they
so
really
emotional. It tugs at our like core, feelings and everything.
And when you look back on the Lost Boys, and I can't even believe when I'm making my notes here, 1987, that really makes me feel freaking old. It really does. I mean,
yeah, it's 36 years.
Yeah, don't say that.
I know. We just had the anniversary, right, in July or something like that.
Yeah. Now, expand a little bit, beyond Jason Patrick and Corey, who you've obviously, made mention that you've kept ties with. What about some of the ancillary guys? Like I think about Marco, Alex Winter. I believe one of the vampires, if I'm not mistaken, one of the main guys, unfortunately did pass away himself. Did he not?
Yeah. Brooke McCarter died.
Okay.
Not too long after him. No, maybe it was a couple years after him. I can't remember, but yeah. So all these guys I got close with again. We didn't have that many scenes together back in 86, and we were different age groups. They were in their late 20s, early 20s, late teens, early 20s, and I was like, we were like 14, 15, 16, over here. So I didn't get to know them then, but then with the conventions and stuff like that, all of a sudden, again, we're the same age, and it took a little bit to get out of the mode of like, oh, these guys are my older, my sister's age friends,
right.
And just, so I got really close with Brooke, actually. And I was really sad when he died. He was a lot of fun, on the convention circuit, a lot of fun for the fans and a lot of fun for us. He made it a big party for us. It was great.
Yeah.
And Billy and I are also really close. We see each other pretty much only at conventions, and we try to do stuff here and there. We sometimes shoot a little something here and there together. But he's a great guy. Billy's just a really good guy, magical in a lot of ways.
And obviously Kiefer's gone on to quite a lot of success.
Yeah. So Kiefer, I saw Kiefer. The only time I've seen Kiefer in adult life was also in 2019 in Manchester, and it was just briefly. I mean, we did pictures together, but we didn't really get a chance. We might have been like, "Hey, what's up?" Like, "Hey, Newlander, what's up?" I mean, I don't know if that's but, but then we went to see his band that night or Sunday night or whatever in a club nearby, and he was awesome, and we just had a great time and everything. And then we went backstage to see him, and first of all, I didn't realize that he's not much taller than me. I thought he was much bigger. I mean, to his credit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he got a big presence,
Yeah, he does have he does have a very big screen presence. I'll agree with you that he does. He
commands. Most of us are short, like what I mean. Most actors, right? You meet us, like you're like, wow, or at least there's a big subset,
Yeah. That's probably why you guys are up on such a big screen.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably why we went into it, is to be, transformed.
And obviously, Alex Winter also, he's gone on to do a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Alex and the stuff he's done, and I just saw Zappa. I haven't seen the YouTube Effect yet. I'm excited for it, but I have a lot of respect for his work. I also think that Lost Boys. I've heard him talk about Lost Boys and how he approached Lost Boys and just the integrity that he had back then, and I mean continues to have, and then to go into Bill and Ted's and have these two really big movies and and even more. But it's like there's Bill and Ted's is a movie that I was a regular guy again by the time I saw Bill and Ted's. I was in college and just like, oh yeah, I did a movie with him, but whatever. And I loved that movie. That was so funny.
Yeah, I did too. And of course he played Marco, first vampire killed in the movie. I mean,
is that right? That's right, actually.
Yeah, he was the first. Yeah, he was the first one to go, man. When you guys crawled down in the cave and staked him, he was the first. But they did seem like they had a lot of Now I'm a big nerd when it comes to Lost Boys, so I've watched a lot of the documentaries and the behind the scenes stuff. But but a big sticking point that you hear the guys talk about a lot were those freaking contact lenses.
Yeah. It was like this brand new technology.
Yeah, which seems so dated right now, right? Because they would just CGI the whole thing probably nowadays. I mean,
yeah, totally. Or the contacts nowadays. I wore contacts in the thirst, and it's just a whole different thing. Some of them are just contacts, They're just like, oh, you just put them in and they're colored, and some of them are a little more painful, but the ones they wore were like they like slipped this whole chunk in their eye, and apparently it was really painful. And then I guess one of us, me or one of the two Corys, kicks dirt in Alex Winter's eyes in the cave scene. I don't know if you heard that bit of the lore. Yeah. And I don't know if it was me. It probably wasn't me. I think I probably would have been really aware of that, but it could have been. They're telling us to kick stuff. They really wanted us to kick. In the shot, they wanted us to kick sand at him.
Right. So, and it's also pretty amazing though, the cultural impact though, and even geographically wise, how much that movie has done for that whole area out in California. The the fictitious, well, it was Santa Carla in the movie, right? But it's really what is Santa Cruz?
Yeah, Santa Cruz. In fact, I got it in my head recently because I talk to people at conventions and they go to Santa Cruz and they're like looking for Lost Boys stuff and they can find it, but it's not easy, And so I'm like, this has to be a solution. We have to maybe curate this a little bit better. And so I've been going up there. I've been up there a couple times now. One time I did a signing at the comic book store. The comic book store, the Atlantis Fantasy World. I don't know if you heard the story that
but it's not right there. It's not right there on the strip, though. It's actually down more, right?
Right. Yeah, they had to move it from there was an earthquake in 94 or whatever, or something, 93, 89.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. But in any case, anyway, so I've been going up there and I'm doing like little YouTube show about going up there and going to the different locations, just for fun, like, super low key. And so that's what I'm kind of realizing is that Santa Cruz, there's something unique about Santa Cruz. There's something different about Santa Cruz, and I've been trying to get at what it is. And I'm sure that that's why they said it there, that because there's something. The thing about it, that I came to this last trip is that it's a surf town. Possibly, it's not really a beach town, or I mean, it is, but it's not really a swimming town. I don't know if you tried to swim in Santa Cruz, but it's cold.
Yeah. It's Northern California, right?
Yeah, it basically is. Yeah, it's not too far from San Francisco. Yeah. And so I kind of came to that realization that Santa Cruz, I don't know, there's a lot of feelings I have about Santa Cruz. There's a lot of like, it's like an old friend, and getting back there is neat, and trying to understand it in a way that I couldn't back then because I was too young to understand that kind of thing,
Are you surprised as a young actor when you're doing that movie and, maybe you didn't even understand at that age the magnitude of her starring in it, but to get somebody like a Diane Wiest to play in that, where I believe she had just come off winning an Academy Award.
Yeah, she just, she was the favorite to win for Hannah and Her Sisters that next Academy Awards. So, right, I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. I don't think she had won the Academy Award just yet, but yeah, it was right then when she was so another credit to Schumacher that he understood what it was going to take to make this not just a vampire movie, not just a a vampire movie, but the grounding that she gave to it, and I got to watch some of that stuff close up. There's one thing that I've been remembering lately. I've been remembering things lately, especially going up to Santa Cruz, remembering little moments. And there was this one moment where it was where Haim goes in and he talks to her in the video store. He goes in with his bike, and he's like talking about how this. Yeah, exactly. And she's like, this is about Max. And he's like, I'm not talking about Max, that kind of thing. And so I got to watch them rehearse that, so it's like, because we're out there on our bikes, they're kind of lighting us and stuff because he's about to come to us being like, okay, guys, we're on our own, and we're like, good, so we're there. And I got to watch Diane and Corey rehearsing, and it was the most amazing thing because they're both so talented and so she was so maternal with him, in terms of just guiding him as an actress, and he was very humble. Haim was, even though he probably at that point understood that he was really talented, but he was really humble, especially in the face of someone like Diane, who he had a lot of respect for. And so just getting a chance to watch that and watching how I was a big fan of hers already from Footloose. I loved Footloose, and I thought she was great, and so it just was a real treat to be working alongside her,
And you also, now I don't know how many episodes or how many cameo appearances you made, but you did pop into the reality series, The Two Coreys, a couple of times.
At least 2, if not 3 times. So it was a weird kind of thing. It was a weird sort of thing. It was like the first season, a lot of people didn't understand that it was actually scripted. It was more like like Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of, where it was like situations that were scripted, but it was close enough to reality that people, I think, didn't really get that. And so a lot of people didn't. You obviously got that, but and so it was kind of weird. And also there was something weird that happened where Haim kind of started to believe it, as odd as it sounds. Like, so I was there, and the theme of the episode was that I came to town.
Right.
Was that I came to town, right? And like they're off doing their couple thing, whatever. Yeah. So Haim starts to kind of believe this, I think. And so we were back hanging at his hotel, and we were just having, I was thrilled to hang out with just Haim, and he get like, he had an Xbox. We were going to play some Xbox and everything. And he just got obsessed with calling Feldman and just being like, Newlander is here. And I was just like, I don't want Feldman thinking I'm like, Feldman's got to hang out with me. Like I can see Feldman in LA, what I mean? Like, So that's what was weird about it, is that Haim kind of started believing those circumstances. You know what I mean? And
was he also believing the part? Because I remember the episode where you kind of came into town, and he seemed very gung ho on like we've really got to write the sequel to Lost Boys.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I think some of this came from the fact that I was always pitching this. I had this idea, the thing I pitched on the show, I don't know if you remember, but
yes,
where we're actually being hunted by vampires, like the actors, I still think that's a cool idea, that
it is. Like,
right. And maybe that's what we should do, because that could get Kiefer back to it and everything, that it's like that we made a pact or something like that we weren't going to talk about it, but that we're and we have to fight them off ourselves, or there's only 2 people, what I mean? That could be cool.
Very cool.
So I was always talking about this, so they're like, okay, well, I think they were like, let's put this in, and then they just liked the part where I was like, and then Haim dies. And then
he didn't like that part so much.
It's funny.
I don't think anybody wants to be written out of the movie. Probably that's probably a tough pill to swallow, right? When you're a big star and then you're getting killed in the sequel. But someone's got to be a victim.
But I mean, also, it's like, it's Haim, it's like, to kill Corey Haim, like how funny that would be. You know what I mean?
It seems like one of the big key players, though, like would have to probably bite the bullet, though. It'd have to have a little shock value. I mean,
yeah, exactly. And there's nothing that says he couldn't have come back in the next season as a vampire or as a, know what I mean? Like,
sure.
And to say the truth, I didn't think he was really that upset about it. I think it's just how they cut it. You know what I mean? Like if you look closely, he might have just like looked down or something, and they just cut it.
Yeah.
Like
it's kind of like one of those like wah wah moments, like.
Exactly.
And so what do you have going on currently now? You mentioned, to tell people like what you've currently got going on now. I know you just said a couple minutes ago that you took a stab at doing the podcast thing. I have down here that you had a new one on the way called Current Frequencies.
It's funny. Yeah. So, okay. So, we have my podcasting partner and I, who became known as the Other Guy, because our show was the JAMISON Newlander and some other guy's show.
Yes, I have that down here. That was the first one, and that one is now defunct.
It's defunct. However, we were playing with a bunch of different things. So we were like Current Frequencies. We wanted to do like fiction, audio fiction,
right,
because we both love audio fiction. And then we were like, oh, let's do Current Frequencies. And then I was going to do something called Totally, where I interviewed people from the 80s, other actors like me from the 80s. And so that's what I did.
Awesome.
Right.
That I love. That I love. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so I did Keith Coogan. I had that one, like when we began to cut it and everything. And then I started to be like, you know what? I don't have the focus to be like calling up and getting guests. You know what I mean? Like people I'm hanging out with. I don't want to be like, to Jason Patrick, like, hey man, you know, can you come on my podcast? Like, I just want to be hanging out and kind of reconnecting and stuff like that. And that's lame of me because I could put together a cool show. Totally could be a cool show. But then I was like, and then also with the audio drama, do I really want to be vetting all this material? And then, you know, like, I don't know if that's my skill set, you know. And then so I thought, so other guy, Nigel is his name, and I talked about this, and we were like, you know, maybe we should return to Jamison Newlander and some other guy's show and have those as elements, have, you know, have interviews, have totally interviews, and have, so that's kind of the idea with that.
And I think it is kind of key though, because of the name recognition factor. I think that does work good. As somebody that does a podcast myself, I don't put my name in it because I don't have name recognition. But obviously, though, you know, that's a cool tie-in if you were going with that '80s theme, because people do you know, recall you from the '80s.
Right, and it's like they can see me, and then they can see me, you know, like, you know, almost like Keith and I, when we were doing it, we were like almost interviewing each other, you know, because it's like, you know, and so that's like it's more of like a discussion, which is cool, you know. I think there's, you know, it adds to the field a little bit. So
but you are still trying to procure acting roles though as well.
Yeah. So this is also a new thing. I mean, a new-ish thing. Like, so, you know, within the last 10 years or so, I started, you know, just kind of putting it out there. You know, I'm looking for some roles. I never liked how I auditioned. I never felt confident in auditioning. And so I was like, you know, any roles you have, blah, blah, blah. I did Bone Tomahawk, was my friend Craig Zoller, you know, and that was great. That was a nice role. Got to work with some great people, you know, then also the Corey stuff where I was the cop. And then also I did some stuff for my friend Brian Herzlinger, who we've worked with a bunch, you know, he's an 80s devotee as well. And so about a year ago, I started being like, you know what, why don't I feel good about auditioning? You know, why don't I address this? You know, like, I'm an adult. I don't have the hangups that I have as a kid, that I had as a kid. You know, I have different hangups, whatever. But so I started an audition class, and I got the hang of it in a new way. And so I booked a couple of gigs. I booked one role called Mr. Manhattan. It's not a big role. It's just a couple of days I shot on. And so that'll be out at some point. And then I did something on a show called Actors Are People Too. We sat, you know, other actors and stuff. We sat around a lunch table and talked and stuff like that. So that'll be out soon. And then I'm doing this. Basically, we're calling it Jamison Newlander's Lost Locations, Searching for the Lost Boys. It's like on YouTube, and I'm putting it out on Instagram and TikTok, all my social. That's me going up to Santa Cruz. I went up to the Pogonip, you know, to Grandpa's house, you know, and walked around that a little bit, you know. So it's cool. And then put some clips in from the movies. I've seen some other people do it, but like you say, you know, the name thing, having me do it where I was experiencing stuff there, it's kind of fun, you know. And, you know, so
I have seen another guy who has a channel on YouTube called Grim Collective, and he goes to movie spots, and he did one. But you know, I think it's obviously going to be different when it's Alan Frog taking you on the guided tour. You know what I mean? Like rather than and he did the same stuff. You know, he went where the carousel is, you know, and he went to, you know, up on that little bluff there, like where the kids were making out when they got the roof ripped off the thing. You know what I mean? Just all over that area, the comic book store, all that stuff. You know, and very nostalgic though. Very nostalgic.
It is. That's how I'm feeling when I'm up there. I mean, it's really cool. I also happen to be up there on some beautiful days. I mean, there are a lot of beautiful days up there, but God, it was like the last time I was there was gorgeous, amazing.
What about the behind the scenes stuff though? Do you still like the writing and the behind the scenes stuff as much? Are you still taking an active role in that?
Yeah, I love writing. I kind of, for a little while, I sort of felt that was my career, and I was doing, I ended up in marketing for a while because I was doing like advertising writing and things like that as well. But, you know, the time that I've spent like late night perfecting screenplays that, you know, some of which never went anywhere, you know, it's like, but that time I felt confident as a writer. And so I'm working on a bunch of different things. There's you know, it's so far off that I can talk about it, but I had this concept for a private eye in the fruit trade, like a fruit private eye, like it would be called FPI. and so it's like it's a little bit over, it's a little broad, but it's a it's like it's a noir, where
Yeah.
the food
Yeah.
is kind of the MacGuffin,
Yeah.
and so I'm putting that together with a few people, and I'm writing that, and I play the lead in that. So some stuff like that. I have some other kind of things like that, So
And I
so
think the exciting part is, and I think the exciting part is, and of course, I certainly understand it's in the embryonic stages and you're being tight-lipped about it, but it is exciting to hear though that you and Feldman are kind of, have some ideas.
Yeah, well, that's right. I forgot about that even, because that's is a big thing that could take center stage, pretty quickly. We a little while ago, I came up with a certain angle for a Frog Brothers show, and something that was kind of exciting and could bring us back in an exciting way. And Feldman dug it, and so we, began to kind of think about how to put it together. And then we involved another couple of people. We have a good pitch deck, and we're approaching people at Warner Brothers. Initially, some people at Warner Brothers were really into it, and then it was like all hell broke loose. They did the merger and everything like that, and now they're like really revamping production. But one of the things that they're going to stick with are these IP products. These IP, what do you call them? Not products, licenses, the Lost Boys, the things like that, franchises, things they own, and so we are in a decent position to potentially get that made. Also with the success of Cobra Kai, just being like that nostalgia, but at the same time bringing it to modern day and having it be a cool new story, So
I love that. I love that idea, because I really could see the Lost Boys, and I'm glad you made mention, because with the slick writing and the updating it and infusing all those kids into the Cobra Kai series has been fantastic.
Right.
And then kind of seeing the world through Ralph Macchio and William Zabka's eyes. I mean, it's been great, and seeing them kind of feuding as adults. It's very tongue in cheek and funny, but very well written though. The guy and Ralph Macchio has been pretty candid about saying over the years he's been pitched just about everything to reprise that role, but this really made the most sense, and it is really well done and very slick. It is.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I like. It's the kind of, it's smart. It's smart, and it's it's something we can enjoy. It's like that, in Back to the Future, when we get to go back and see from a different angle, Back to the Future 2. You know what I mean? Was it in 2? Yeah.
And I feel like if it can be done with the karate aspect, it could certainly be done in some form with the vampires, because I think that's always romanticized and always kind of stays fresh. Like, even when you fast forward a bunch of years and then you see the Twilight movies come out, something about vampires always draws people in.
Yeah, totally. And we have an opportunity to introduce a new pack of vampires as well.
Yes.
We're the hunters, and so if it was a show, about us, we have an opportunity here, to add to the genre, with a new badass pack of vampires. And I think
some
also
good young actors in there. Sure.
Yeah. Right. And so also, one of the things I wanted to do too is bring in the convention piece of it, because it's such a big part of horror culture now. And so in this, and we'll see how it plays out, and we'll see if it makes it, if the show goes, and if this still makes it, but that we're doing conventions, that the Frog Brothers are doing conventions as the Frog Brothers, we're doing, as vampire hunters, as famous vampire hunters, so it's sort of an indication that we've gone soft a little bit, but at the same time, bringing in that convention culture, I think would be really cool.
It's almost like you guys are like the Ghostbusters of the vampire world. Almost.
Right. Totally. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. That's a great like analogy though, man. I could totally see something like that working though. I mean, it's a fantastic fresh take on it too. It really
got to suit up, and then it's like, then we got to suit up. There's something, that we got to suit up for,
Yeah. I'm so happy we got a chance to do this, man. You spent damn near an hour with me, man, and I've enjoyed every second of it. It's really been a pleasure getting to talk to you. I know we played, text message tag for quite a while, being able to get our schedules on the same page. But I'm glad we finally got a chance to do this, though, man. And I feel like you're the only one with the power to do this, man. But can you deputize me as an honorary Frog Brother? I would love to be an honorary Frog Brother. Just honorary.
Yeah, you know what? I'll go ahead and do that. I'll call you an honorary frog.
Rex Frog, please.
Yeah, there's a period of time. Initial period of time. You have to prove yourself. We'll get you some messages. I'll
go out there. I'll go out there and get my kills in. No problem.
Yeah. So that's stage 2. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. I'll go start sharpening up my wooden stakes right now, and I will have the squirt gun in the holy water on standby. Plenty of garlic cloves. Whenever you need me, I'm here.
I dig it. It's good.
Yeah,
Thanks for tracking me down. I know we played tag for a while, but I appreciate you sticking with it.
Yeah, and please stay in touch. And when there's something else in the works, hopefully we can get on here and we can do this again.
That'd be great. I'd love it. So a lot of different stuff is coming. So let's stay in touch.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Jamison. Thanks so much, buddy. It's really been a
Definitely,
pleasure.
Man.
Yeah, thank you. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Talk to you soon.
All right, later. Red button at the bottom. There he goes, folks. JAMISON NEWLANDER. I mean, come on. That is Alan Frog, for fuck's sake. And if you don't know the Lost Boys, stop watching my show. God damn it. Go back to 1987 in your time capsule. Go check out the Lost Boys. The greatest vampire movie ever fucking made. Teen vampire movie. Fuck those little snot-nosed brats in Twilight. 1987, the Lost Boys, they had the original formula. They had the recipe. They got it fucking right. No cooler vampires ever existed. No cooler vampire hunters ever existed. Of course, JAMISON NEWLANDER and Corey Feldman, Edgar and Alan Frog. Just a movie that was just jam-packed with all the fucking greats. Jason Patrick, Kiefer Sutherland, the Coreys, Alex Winter. Come on, Diane Wiest. Fuck's sake, man. I mean, one of a movie that just epitomizes the 80s. The fun, the spoof, the tongue-in-cheek. The whole vibe, the way they dressed, everything, man. That movie was just such a big part of my childhood at 50 years old, man. Just, we went to see it 2 nights in a row with my friend Sean at the movie theaters. And for fuck's sake, we're 14 years old. We wanted to be vampires, And when a movie instills that in you, like, fuck, how do we become, that was just the magic of movies as I remember it as a child. And so it's always great to take a walk down memory lane with an 80s icon like JAMISON. As I made mention, we've been texting back and forth here for months trying to make this happen. He's a busy guy. I am not really a busy guy, but, I'm waiting on a busy guy. But persistence pays off. That was a fucking great chat, man. That was a real honor and a pleasure getting the chance to talk to JAMISON NEWLANDER, a.k.a. Alan Frog. Vampire hunter extraordinaire. And as you just heard, Rex Ruger, now a.k.a. Rex Frog. I've been deputized. I've been made an honorary frog brother by the man himself. So huge honor right there, man. And I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. That was a fucking lot of fun. And until we get together and we do this thing again, please remember to take it easy and keep it sleazy.